This video is sponsored by Sakura Co and Tokyo Treat. More about them in a bit. So, fight design in 14 has gotten a little stale, but it sounds like the team is actually ready to do something about it now. Yoshi P admitted in a recent interview that they handled criticisms a bit too severely. If players didn't like a mechanic, instead of looking at why, if reasons were even given at all, and adjusting it from there, they just decided to remove it from all future encounters. We as players do need to get better about giving proper feedback, but I'm glad that the team is ready to acknowledge the flaws in their approach up until now. It is important to make sure that players are having fun with the game, but what does that mean for the fight design? As you probably know by now, I'm a big believer that fun should come before balance. Not that balance isn't important, but if I had to choose between something stupid fun and something extremely tuned, I'm gonna opt for the fun option most of the time. Not because I don't like challenges, but I think enjoyment should come from participating in the challenge, not just from overcoming it. So what can we do to make things more interesting? I don't have a ton of options to go through in this video, but I at least wanted to get the ball rolling. These ideas aren't exactly original, as I've taken a lot of inspiration from other RPGs, both action and turn-based, in order to make encounters a little bit more fluid while moving away from the strictly scripted mechanic dances that we have now. Each game has different ways of handling these things, with elements in place to prevent players from abusing them. Now, some games handle these mechanics better than others, but they at least give players more variety in how they tackle content than always having them do the same thing over and over. How these mechanics can be applied to Final Fantasy XIV is what I want to be going over in this video. The first element is a break mechanic. This involves a condition being met or damage being done in a specific way that breaks the boss. And no, I don't mean causing an unintended bug to happen. Typically, break states are a short window where an enemy stops attacking, takes extra damage, has their attacks interrupted, or all of the above. Monster Hunter, for instance, will allow you to break certain parts of the creature's body in order to reduce their range, prevent the use of certain limbs, knock them out, or topple them over. Souls-like games will usually have stagger bars that require enough damage to bring enemies to their knees, or certain attacks that can be parried, which requires fight knowledge and precise timing. While this may sound broken for the player, break states are usually offset by a rage or overdrive mechanic. In this state, enemies typically deal more damage, move faster, or charge their special abilities faster. How it specifically affects an encounter differs from game to game. In ARPGs, it usually kicks in at a certain health threshold. Enemies will change their attack patterns or become more aggressive and make it more difficult for the players to fight back until they calm back down. As I said before, there are ways to avoid these mechanics from being abused. One is diminishing returns, which increases the boss's resistance to being broken. The other option is similar, where you only have a certain number of break attempts possible during the span of a fight. And finally, rage phases could get more and more dangerous the more breaks that have happened during the course of a fight, making it sort of a softened rage. Now, aside from breaks and rage, the third option is a bit more general, and that's having the mechanics of a fight vary slightly based on how you decide to interact with the boss. And as we know, variety is the spice of life, just like the variety of delicious Japanese snacks from today's sponsors. Start your summer right with some authentic Japanese snacks from Sakura Co and Tokyo Treat. Sakura Co is a monthly artisan Japanese snack box that supports local Japanese snack makers. Each box comes with 20 traditional, authentic, and artisan Japanese snacks, including Japanese teas and a special Japanese tableware. This month we're going to Tokofu, a region famous for their lively festivals. We've got some authentic savory flavors to bring that festive essence right into your home. Snacks like these mini shrimp tempura. Definitely smells like shrimp. You got a whole bunch of stuff in there. Look at that. Whoa, that just hits you immediately. They really get the umami down with these dried foods. Oh my goodness. And let's not forget this month's tableware, which has a bunch of kitties on it. The Neko Tenegui is a traditional Japanese towel that you can use for your hands, dishes, or washing. Now then, Tokyo Treat is a monthly pop Japanese snack box where you can get up to 20 of exclusive limited edition and seasonal flavored Japanese snacks, including Japanese instant ramen and drinks that are only available in Japan for a limited time. And this month we're going to the island getaway of Okinawa with a box full of tropical flavors to put you in the summer groove. I'd personally recommend the Mizu grape gummies, which are shaped like little water droplets. Again, they don't hold back on the flavor. Just immediately in your mouth, immediately explodes, and that's going to keep you super refreshed through the whole summer. So if any of this sounded good and you're feeling a little adventurous this summer, use the link down below and code DRAK for $5 off your first authentic Japanese snack box. Alright, back to this discussion. Now for break conditions, rage phases, and the variety of different mechanics through the course of a fight, each role will have a role to play in each one. And I'm going to go through each one now. First, of course, would be making certain tank busters behave as a clash, where the tank needs to survive taking consistent damage during the clash, either preventing enough damage to the tank or giving your team the chance to deal enough damage during the clash animation could cause the boss to break or fall off balance. It could also just be a way to give your DPS a chance to attack the boss uninterrupted. To stop this from being abused, if the tank succeeds in the struggle, they could get a permanent buff that increases their damage dealt, but also their damage taken. This would reward their success, but also prevent them from doing it too often. Next, let's talk about off-tanks. Similar struggles could be added either with adds or incoming attacks. The off-tanks would move into position to intercept these elements to prevent damage to the party, or give the DPS a chance to kill the adds before they can do what they're supposed to, or just make sure that things die or resolve at a certain point on the arena for future mechanics. Just something more than just standing there waiting for the next tank swap. Having a dedicated job for the off-tank could also allow some fights to not rely so heavily on the tank swap mechanic every time in order to keep players engaged. Now, allowing these attacks and adds to go through could still have some benefits for the party along with the detriments. Along with more damage that needs to be healed or buffs on the boss, it could also heal the boss, restoring another break attempt so your party could use it again later on in the fight. I don't know, just let the off-tanks do something interesting. On to healers. Their role isn't so much about doing things to the boss as much as preventing or undoing what the boss has done. Because of that, I see them dealing more with the boss's rage attacks when they're not helping the tank stay on their feet. Similar to how tanks could clash with tank busters, I think it would be interesting allowing healers to have a similar mechanic with raid-wide damage. For instance, if you've done the Orban Monastery, you know the phase transition where the heroes put up a barrier to protect players from Ultima's attack. I just think it would be interesting to allow players the chance to do something similar. Shield healers could erect a persistent barrier that they maintain to hold off incoming damage or even adds from getting into the party. Now, while every healer has a version of a barrier, more or less, not every healer is a shield healer. So what do pure healers do for this? Well, I think being able to select the barrier that's been placed and heal it to improve its integrity could be interesting. Essentially working together and channeling your Aether to maintain the barrier, whether that has its own animation while you hit healing buttons or you're just straight up healing it. And then you have the option of having two pure healers where there's no barrier, but you're maintaining the party's health while the DPS do their usual thing of hitting the boss and hurting it enough to stop it from reaching full power or putting it into the break state. Now, speaking of DPS, there's not really a whole lot to add. DPSing is already pretty fun and everyone just enjoys hitting their buttons. Just let them keep hitting their buttons and most DPS will be pretty happy. They'll do what they always do and keep hitting the boss until its health hits 0. What I would like to see change in fight design, however, is a departure from the hardened rages while replacing them with intermittent DPS checks. Things like Titan's Heart from the hard mode when hard modes were hard. And as I mentioned before, bosses winding up large attacks could have their arms or weapons or heads targetable depending on what kind of enemy it is. Dealing enough damage to these parts could break the boss and stop the attack, or at the very least weaken the damage. They can assist with tank busters like this, or healing checks, all depending on what strategy your party wants to go with. This could also help us move away from the 2-minute meta by allowing players to hold their damage for certain mechanics or burst early so that they can have it later on in the fight. Now, whether or not this is something that the community needs or even wants is up for debate, but it would take the game in a direction that I think I'd like at least. Of course, there will be issues with this, same as any solution that comes up. While this doesn't have to be a retroactive change to all fights, players are used to fights progressing in a certain way. Mechanics play out in a specific order, and we're taught the fight as we progress through each one. While the added flexibility from what I'm suggesting could keep things interesting, it could also cause a lot of frustration because the expectations of each fight would be changing. Not to mention the friction in Party Finder for which strat each group wants to do. Though arguably that last point could be moot since I think Party Finder is actually the perfect place for stating your expectations before assembling a group. And then disbanding after a single wipe anyway. In any case, these ideas might be hot garbage and have no place in Final Fantasy XIV's future. But while change is on the horizon, I wanted to throw my hat in the ring. I'm gonna go get it. I want it on. My suggestions here aren't the only ones I want to advocate for, though. I do want to hear if you guys agree or disagree, as well as what else you might want to add to the game to increase your own engagement and enjoyment for future encounters. What are you hopeful for, and what do you already enjoy about current fight designs? I hope to come back to this discussion some point in the future once we actually see what's going to be changed in fights, but I would absolutely love to see some of these elements make it into one of the later raid tiers or extremes. Until then, thanks for watching, God bless you all, and we'll see you in the next one.